I'm Doug Keck, and this is an EWTN Bookmark. Our special guest author right here in the studio with me is Robert Spitzer, S.J., Ph.D. This book, Christ versus Satan in Our Daily Lives, The Cosmic Struggle Between Good and Evil, published by Ignatius Press and naturally available through our EWTN religious catalog. Well, Father Robert Spitzer, anytime there's discussions that have to do with the evil one, it seems like you have problems. Do you have any stories related to writing this book and dealing with this book?
Oh, yeah. When we first tried to get the promotions going for it, Teresa Tomeo was doing an interview with me, and in the midst of the interview, all we got through, this was a regular hardline phone, not a cell phone. All we got was static, and it was so difficult to do the thing. We were just about ready to give up because, of course, it seemed like something was trying to stop us. And then I was invited to do this big podcast for the Catholic Information Center in Washington, D.C. And the minute we started doing it, I got about maybe 10 minutes into the thing. And then, the recording machine failed. Then the machine to transmit it, to all the various podcasters who were receiving it failed.
On the web,
and then,
right.
everything failed, one after the next, and finally, we basically had to redo it later on. But, I mean, this is very, very typical.
And what do you think that is?
I think the evil spirit just wants to put every obstacle he can in the way, and God allows him to do it in his permissive will. And I suppose to test our own resolve to getting the word out, and our desire to just keep pushing forward, and to make the efforts that need to be made, and to actually take the crosses that are presented to us, and to get it out. And
do you think it's also the fact that he's done a really good job of convincing people that he and his minions don't exist?
Oh, yes. I think the evil spirit definitely does not want anybody to know any thing about himself. Certainly doesn't want anybody to know anything about his techniques, how he works through the deadly sins, how, what a possession is, and how this can actually happen, and why there's an increase in the number of possessions and obsessions and oppressions that are happening, by the evil spirit, and how those things worked in the lives of the saints. And anytime these things come to light, the darkness, namely the evil spirit, suffers. And so absolutely, he's going to try and throw every rock.
How does he suffer? How does he suffer when it comes to light?
Because the darkness likes to remain hidden, and when light is cast on that darkness, and all of his insidious schemes are revealed, and how he works those insidious schemes, then of course his project is undermined. It fails, and people proceed on their path to virtue, and they proceed in a really good way. I mean, things happen, and when people have an aversion to evil, they start getting serious about their moral lives, and they start saying, I don't like the guy who's in charge of the operation here. The sin, we always hear this thing, victimless sin or something of that nature. But once you begin to see how sin works, and how the devil works, and how he kind of, step by step, he increases everything until, of course, you're sucked into the lie that it really doesn't matter anyway. When it does matter, the further along the road he gets you, the harder it is to turn around. And if you keep saying that again and again in an interview, he's not going to like it.
Well, once he gets you to cross over, then he can give you a hard time about what a terrible person you really are anyway,
That's one of his key plans. Is first he talks you into doing things and gives you all the temptations you could possibly want and all the deceits to justify it. Then when you go over the line, he becomes the accuser. You dirty, rotten little wretch. I always knew that you would do something just like this. And by the way, God really hates you because of it. And you're beyond the point.
You've let so many people down.
That's right. And you're beyond the point of forgiveness, and blah 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 blah. And of course, all the lies, more deceits are compounded on the accusations. So, oh no, he's got a very, very good plan, and sticks to it, and it works with a whole lot of people in the contemporary world. And a lot of people just prefer to remain ignorant because they can't stand the thought that they might actually be playing into this very demonic preternatural force that...
And that's an important point, because in order for it to really cause a problem, you have to play into it and invite into it.
Exactly,
Right.
Correct.
Right.
And that's it. The devil has, he can't work against your freedom, and he cannot enter into your free choice. So you're going to be free to choose no matter what. Now, when the devil is manifesting in a possessed person, during that moment, it would be very hard to get into the free choice. But the devil can't invade your free choice, undermine it, and destroy it. That remains intact. But when they're manifesting, it's like there's a block there. But they don't manifest, possessed people. They obviously the possession is it's
almost
undone.
like a computer virus. You let it
Yeah.
in,
And
and even the things that designed to stop it after, it gets blocked on solving the problem.
Yeah, but then eventually they won't stay that way for 24 hours. They'll be manifesting for about an hour, hour and a half, and then it'll go away for the rest of the day and then come back again. But while they're manifesting, they're blocked in the manifestation.
Now, you laid out the trilogy of your 3 books. Now, you made this the volume 1 of it, Called Out of Darkness, Contending with Evil, Through the Church, Virtue, and Prayer. Why did you think that was important for this to be the first one of the trilogy?
Because if we don't understand that there's a cosmic struggle between good and evil, right? There's this fundamental, whole arena of reality that is not immediately apparent to our senses, but it's there all right. And of course, it's the real reason we're alive. Are we going to come down on the side of cosmic good or cosmic evil? Are we going to help, the devil to defeat cosmic good, or are we going to help God to defeat cosmic evil? This whole arena of our freedom actually having a spiritual consequence, not only to our salvation, but potentially the salvation of all kinds of other people as well. So you look at that and you go, wow, this whole arena is there, and this is why the devil is so anxious to get his propaganda out. This is why Jesus was so forceful in talking about Satan and talking about hell and giving us those warnings that this could be a reality for us if we allow ourselves to follow Satan into that, freely choosing his lifestyle, freely choosing right into a hellish eternity, etc. So I just want people to know, hey, when you get to my 3rd book in the series on the moral wisdom of the Catholic Church, I'm going to talk a lot about, the emotional health of people, etc. But the spiritual health of people is the number 1 deal. In other words, we want people to know, you keep going down this lifestyle that's antithetical to Jesus' teaching, contrary to Jesus' teaching, you're going to see, hey, I'm losing control. I mean, I'm getting more and more addicted to this sinful lifestyle, more and more addicted to my own ego, more and more addicted to dominating others, more and more addicted to each and every one of those deadly sins, and it's really getting hard to turn around. So
do people also, in some ways, when that's going on, also tend to be repelled from goodness?
Yes, yes, absolutely, and that's the whole point, is not only to be repelled by the goodness, but to ridicule it, and pretend that you're above it, to do the old Nietzschean beyond good and evil. Absolutely, these people come, most arrogantly talking about, how, the church or Jesus or, his moral teaching are so, antithetical to the culture. They're just not in the mainstream. These poor, anachronistic Christians, they're living according to a bygone age and slipped into some medieval tradition and so forth and so on. But at the end of the day, that's just the devil's propaganda that keeps everything, in this person's life hidden. They're so arrogant and so, they believe so much in this false interpretation of reality and evil that, it's really hard to reclaim them. Even if you try to talk sense into them and you say, do you really think a guy like Hitler is just, part of a medieval myth that the church is inserting here, that Jesus is talking about this devil? You think it's just a myth and there's nothing to Jesus at all? And you try to give them evidence for Jesus from history, evidence for Jesus from science and shroud or Eucharistic marriage, try to give them, the evidence of patent evil and the
Right.
you know the Pol Pots and the Hitlers, the
Right.
Stalins of this world, and you know it's just like getting.
Right.
You know these people just don't even figure that they're threatened.
Right.
That there's any danger to this
in some
whatsoever.
cases, a lot of people like to demonize these individuals.
Oh, yeah.
As if, well, he was crazy or he was insane or
Mm-hmm.
maybe he was personally evil, without understanding so many other good people, quote unquote, did horrible things as well.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
when the circumstances allowed that to occur.
Oh, yeah.
That's the evil influence that's just not restricted to, Adolf Hitler.
No, certainly
Right,
not.
right.
I mean, it's a lot of ordinary people.
Absolutely. And
get
so
pulled
you're at
in-
risk yourself, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And that's the whole point.
Right.
But the real arrogance and just being cocksure of yourself and just saying, I just feel like the culture, mainstream morality is really the truth, and all these other things are just psychologically unhealthy. It's exactly the opposite. You present the evidence to them, and you just show, hey, if you don't follow the teaching of Jesus, right? You think cohabitation is so good? It's not good. A guarantee of breaking up your marriage in the future, of having unsatisfying and non-longevity oriented marriages. Just go ahead and cohabitate longer, and you can preserve. All these people who say, oh, it's great to have premarital sex, there's nothing wrong with it. Pornography is a victimless sin. Right. All these things, abortion, no problem. It's just a few cells, don't worry about it. All these things, you start doing these things and just watch your own emotional health catapult to the ground. And not only your emotional health, but your religious, your spiritual life is going to go right downwards as well, along with your emotional health. And then when that happens, your relational and marital health are going to go right down the drain. And I've got in my third volume in this series called The Moral Wisdom of the Catholic Church, I have all these studies that show the complete decline of people. People say, pornography victims, just leave people alone, let them watch their porn. And you say, well, wait a minute, aren't you going to take a look at the tripling in the divorce rate that takes place? Aren't you going to look at the fact that depression levels increase as time spent looking at pornography increase? Aren't you going to look at the fact, the huge study done by the University of Oklahoma that shows that the more time you spend on pornography, the more decline you have in your spiritual life, church attendance, Bible reading, etc. And then on top of it, you can see that it's not just the marriage, risky sexual behaviors, arrest records, spending tons of money, financial disasters, victimless.
Right.
I mean, it's like we got to break through, but the mainstream culture has, their little aphorisms and their little,
Well, so many of these things were naive ideas in 1970. When somebody thought at the time, well, maybe if we did it this way, it would work. But historically, we've now seen over the last 50 plus years that these things are a disaster. I can always attest from having worked on a channel that featured, certain exploitations, that the more you saw and the harder they had to make it to keep people interested, and the more of a negative impact that had on the people just operating the equipment, playing the material back.
Oh, yeah. The depression level increases, spiritual participation decreases rapidly, and then the rest of the relational health and the emotional health, the marital health, all decreases concomitantly. And it's just, it's so obvious. It's in study after study. I'm borrowing from the archives.
Total objectification.
Yeah.
Everything is just an object. It's not a real person. That everything is there for your particular pleasure.
Yeah, and then they say, well, how come divorce rates triple? Because there's no emotional intimacy left after you dehumanize the person, turn them into an object, and of course think that you're going to be gratified in the same way by looking at a picture or a video of some person doing something, absolutely, well.
I know, right, disgusting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was interesting, too, because in the introduction to the trilogy, you quoted Pope Benedict. You say, we are building a dictatorship of relativism, this was his quote, that does not recognize anything as definitive and whose ultimate standard consists solely of one's own ego and desires. You say the need to confront the dictatorship of relativism should not be underestimated, for we shall see it is leading not only to a decline in transcendence, faith, morality, purpose in life, but also to an underestimation of the true dignity and destiny of every person. That's true. What does it have to do with Satan?
Well, he's the one who's concocting all of this to enhance it. Of course, we have desires in us that we know are aberrant desires by our own conscience. God did give us a conscience, so there's a natural way of knowing about morality, right? But at the same time, there's much more than just a conscience. Because associated with the conscience, we all have the notion of the cosmic struggle between good and evil. I don't care what culture you're in. There's an evil figure and there's a good figure. J.R.R. Tolkien, right, has all the archetypes in his Lord of the Rings. So you've got the Gandalf figure, who is the kind of the incarnate manifestation of the good, and then of course you've got Sauron, the incarnate manifestation of evil. That's there, and they've got their minions. The evil people do, and God has and Gandalf have his allies, right? They're allies, and of course, when you put all these things together, what are you going to get? You're going to get a very profound cosmic struggle between good and evil, and of course, they're going to try and stop everything good from happening. And what we need are heroic length and heroic virtue, both heroic, schemes, actions combined with heroic virtue to confront evil. And at the end of the day, if we do confront it successfully, our world, our culture, our church will be much, much, much better off for our having done it. And if we don't confront it, if we're not heroic, if we don't want to stand up against evil, even when it's going to cost us, right? People ridiculing us, and nobody likes that to happen. Nobody likes, people trying to persecute us, undercut our jobs or whatever, because we're standing up
especially in the world we live in today with online canceling and people doing horrible things to people online.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always tell who's behind it. There's just too much that's well organized for there not to be a mastermind, a truly dark, evil mastermind.
Let me ask you, because chapter 2, you talk all about Jesus' victory over Satan. So why do we even need a chapter 3 since Jesus already won?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to the question is because we're still free. So, in other words, God has to allow evil the possibility of tempting us, deceiving us, and accusing us, and we have, because we're free, God has to allow us the freedom to choose that evil if that is what we truly want to do. And that we're never going to get, the only way of stopping that is basically to deprive us of our freedom by giving us a frontal lobotomy and turning us into good and loving behavior robots. But aside from which, God is not, of course, going to do. So if that's the case, then what's the recourse left? Christ has to do the end run, whereby he, through his unconditional act of love on the cross, right, he's going to create an act of love which is going to be the source, the power of every act of absolution in a confessional, of the Holy Eucharist that we receive in his body and blood, Jesus' body and blood. We're also receiving his unconditional act of love. There is no greater love that a man can have than to give his life for his friends. So he has to go through this incredibly self-sacrificial act to give himself totally in love, to create this power, this resource of love that will become then the ultimate victory. I mean, the devil has no chance of having an ultimate victory. It's all, the end run has already been done. And all the confessions and all the Holy Communions that lead to the forgiveness of sins and to the healing of evil and to the breaking of the grip of the devil, all these things are basically created by Christ's unconditional love. So he did defeat evil, yes, and he gave us the capacity to defeat evil in our ministries and to have the good and have God become the ultimate victor. He basically, when he beats Satan in the temptations in the desert first, the second part of his plan is a prolific ministry of exorcisms that take place all over the place. Wherever he goes, he's exorcising demons, and that's making Satan weaker. And then in the third place, he gives his disciples, in two different passages in Luke and Matthew and Mark, you can see that he gives not only his apostles the power to exorcise demons in his name, but also he gives the 72 the same power to exorcise demons in his name. And then finally, of course, he gives us a series of teachings about Satan and finally his unconditional and unrestricted act of love in the self-sacrificial act that we just celebrate in the Passion. And so you can see, that this act is so powerful. It not only empowers all the sacraments with his love and power, but also gives the ultimate victory to us in the end.
Now, in chapter 3, you talk about the devil is real. You talk about signs of demonic possession. Now, I think back, I hadn't really thought about exorcisms as a kid until the movie The Exorcist came out the end of '73, and I saw it in June of '74. I still remember. But it seems now that exorcism and exorcists is a much more popular discussion, or that much more out there. I don't know if it's because of the web or whatever. Is it because the activity is greater, that people are concerned more? What do you think?
Both. I would say, first of all, there's a lot more activity. Occult activity is picked up hugely in the current age, and we would expect that because whenever we see reversions happening, conversions of young people, as we've seen in these recent statistics on what's going on in the U.S., Great Britain, and France, when we start looking at grace picking up and even the ministry of exorcism picking up, the devil always tries to counteract, right? Tries to basically say, well, you look at all the power and all the foreknowledge you're going to get, and you're going to get some respect now and so forth. So he's really playing it up. Charlie, he goes for the young people first because they're the most naive. They think that nothing really is going to happen to them until, of course, they get, a house infestation, which is basically a haunting, or they get some oppression, et cetera. But, Charlie and Ouija boards, there's just no problem. You can get on the Ouija board, just wait until you read in chapter 3 about what happens to Robbie Mannheim.
Who was the model for what happened in the movie in The Exorcist.
That's correct. That's correct. It all began with a Ouija board, actually. And then he increased his use. His spiritualist aunt told him how to really use it very well. And of course, he follows. And people say, "Well, I'm just using tarot cards. I'm just, casting a curse, occasionally on somebody who really did something bad to me." And of course, anytime you make recourse to a demonic power to help you, to curse somebody, or to do anything like that, or even to force someone to love you, or other kinds of things which demons love to do, the main thing is when you are done, you are the one most affected. Way before the person who's accursed, right? It doubles right back on you. You play to him. You ask him to give you the power to curse somebody. That's an invitation with a capital I.
So do you think curses could actually work?
I do think there are curses that do work, particularly with people who do not have an active faith life. So in other words, for example, somebody who is very not very Christian, doesn't have, church participation, certainly doesn't have the sacraments like the confession and Eucharist, which breaks the power of Satan right away, right? Or doesn't really even have a prayer life to speak of. That person is very powerless. And if somebody curses them, they don't even know what's happening until they're far into it. And so
it's not only that they might be tempted to do it, but they would be defenseless against it.
Yeah, it's very true.
Okay.
It's very true. And so that's obviously why go to church every Sunday and go to confession. Well, that's one of them.
Okay.
You almost become immune to the curses. Some parents, who belong to cults will curse their children and dedicate them to Satan. A little kid can't defend himself, but God always gives the potential for a person who was, cursed or dedicated.
So
to
do you
Satan.
think there are Faustian bargains that people make?
Oh yeah, absolutely. To get riches and power. Oh yes, I do. I think the devil appears and says, he appears as a human being, right? But I can really help you out here. What I need you to do though, if I help you out, is I want you to know I'm going to come back and ask for, some payment, and part of that payment's going to, have to do with your your salvation in the future. You know, he might not say it that explicitly, but he's going to say, I'm expecting a payment.
Right.
And the payment's
sounds like the Godfather there.
Yeah.
You make you offer you can't refuse and ask you for payment later or something for services due.
Yeah, well, payment is coming, and when the payment does come, it's always going to concern the person in their spiritual life. Of course, you can always turn around and get out of it. But boy, you know, you make a bargain with the devil. It's a hard curse to break because you curse yourself. You're literally inviting Satan into you to get the Faustian reward, the riches or the prestigious professorship or the you know, the kind of lifestyle that you would want, or the popularity as a singer or whatever. But the promise will come, and this person will say, you know, I can do this, I can deliver it to you. But, you know, just remember, you know, I'm going to come back, ask for some payment later. And people foolishly agree with the
Well, they probably get so caught up in the success and those other things that kind of dissipates into the background.
Yeah, not surprising that a lot of them commit suicide ultimately. Not surprising, too, that a lot of them, you know, become very possessed, you know, toward the end.
Interesting. Very much an interesting book. Thank you so much, Father Robert Spitzer, S.J., Ph.D. His book, Christ versus Satan in Our Daily Lives, The Cosmic Struggle Between Good and Evil, again, published by Ignatius, available naturally through our EWTN Religious Catalog. And check us out next time right here on EWTN's Bookmark. Thanks.